We're going to dive right in. A lot of you are clearly talking about yesterday's January 6th hearing that focused on former President Trump and his responsibility for the riot at the Capitol. Now, one of the men to testify was a Trump supporter from Ohio who described himself as, quote unquote, nothing but a family man and a working man, who says he was upset by the president's claim the election was stolen. So here's what he said about why he came to D.C. and ended up on Capitol grounds.
So why'd you decide to march to the Capitol?
Basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
Okay, so that man pleaded guilty last month. He does face up to a year in prison. We want to hear from our panel. We want to hear from you. After hearing that testimony, does this prove that our former president led these people? And is Trump responsible for all that happened? What would you say, Jeff?
There's a lot to break down. That's what I have to say. We have to take these into chunks and different conversations. If we're focusing on this man right now, do you want to talk about this man or do you want to talk about the president?
I think they're hand in hand.
Okay, well, this man, I'm going to talk about this man right now. This man, I don't know if he's making excuses for what he did or if he's trying to rectify what he did. Like, looking back, hindsight's 20/20. What I did was wrong, right? I like that perspective. I don't know what he's saying. Is he trying to get out of what he did? Because no matter who's responsible, he's responsible for his own actions. And I'm speaking to him directly, not the president. What he did, he is responsible for. If you storm the Capitol with weapons, intention trying to breach the Capitol,
right,
you have to pay the piper. It's time for you to do what you need to do. Now, if you want to talk about the president and if he's responsible, we could have that conversation. But I was speaking for him in general.
Well, I think he speaks for a lot of people, right? He isn't part of the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. He's the every guy. And he said he was obsessed with social media. And he said he followed Trump over and over again. And what's interesting to me is I think both can be true. He is been accused and convicted of seditious conspiracy. He's going to spend time in jail or probation. But the person in charge who's inciting that riot, which the January 6th committee is trying to prove, is saying that had Trump said, we would have called it off, that guy would have left a lot earlier. They were simply listening to a leader who bears a lot of responsibility for lying about an election being stolen. And when you lie and you have a cult of personality, they're going to believe you. So there was a draft tweet that they found at the hearings. This is what Trump had approved but never sent out. I'll be making a speech at 10 a.m. January 6th. Please arrive early. Massive crowds expected. March to the Capitol after. Stop the steal. This seems premeditated, deliberate, organized. This is a coup that started before January 6th. And if you have a group of people that are going to listen to everything you say and you say, let's go, and you can bring your weapons, that's what they'll do. He never brought a weapon in. I'm glad that he apologized. I still think he was an insurrectionist, and he has to pay the piper, like you said.
In the court of law, though, would this be up for interpretation? Now we're talking about President Donald Trump.
Right.
Did he incite the riots? Is he to blame? If you had 14 people on a jury, which this is
12.
not, or 12, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is not
right.
One of those, right? It's a testimony with the panel.
This is just what they found.
Right. There's no defense, right? So if you did have all that, this is the question that I'm posing just to see the other side. If there was 12 people on a jury, would these tweets or would whatever you just showed and all the other information, would that lead up to 12 people saying, yes, he didn't really say that, but yes, he incited that. I think he needs to go to prison. That's the question. That's the question.
Well, even if it's not prison, though, can I just throw this out there? The fact that, he was at one point, there was an impeachment hearing. Obviously, the system failed, if that's the way you want to view it. However, if he's proven that this was seditious conspiracy, that will prevent him from running again.
And I think that's what this is all about, to be perfectly honest. I posed the question about jail time. I personally don't think he's going to see jail time. I think this is all for him not running in 2024, because if he's convicted of a felony, he cannot run in 2024, but I still don't think he'll see prison time.
I want to get to the next beat.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think this investigation, especially yesterday, if you haven't watched it, showed a direct link into the big lie, into what I want, into I'll be there at the Capitol with you, into I want you to march in and it's okay if you have weapons. To me, that's a pretty long link. It's all up to the Department of Justice now. So wait for the ending, but I think they've made a pretty clear case. Is it up for debate? Absolutely.
So you brought up the Oath Keepers, that this gentleman was not. However, another person did testify who was a former Oath Keeper, who was actually the communications director for the extremist group. Here's what he said about his view of what happened that particular day on January 6th.
I think we need to quit mincing words and just talk about truths. And what it was going to be was an armed revolution. I mean, people died that day. This could have been the spark that started a new civil war, and no one would have won there.
Wow. So now a quick note. He was incorrect when he said that officers died that day, although multiple officers died in the days and months following the riot. But what do you think of his testimony, Erica? And I just want to say, too, the fact that we were so close, according to someone that was in on the ground floor, communications director, to a civil war, doesn't right now put everything aside to you, put all your politics aside. We have to prevent the precedent, because this could happen again with worse results.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it so ironic that a lot of this is coming up and coming through social media. And social media is an amazing tool to galvanize. It's also an amazing tool to throw the grenade and hide your hands. You have people who, and I'm just going to be very clear about this because there's been some talk about the people who have testified. People are not necessarily grounded in reality out there. And there are parties, and I'm saying like parties as in people, who are dependent upon people not being grounded in reality. If you go walk outside and say the sky is blue, and they can walk right out there and be like, actually, it's a hot pink, and everyone's like, yes, we all agree it's a hot pink. That's what's happening right now. Like no one is participating in the same reality. So the idea that this isn't like a cult following thing, and we've talked to a lot of cult survivors, it's dependent on people who aren't grounded and rooted in reality, and that is a very generous assessment of what's happening. They're also going to be your foot soldiers, because when you have less to lose, you have a lot more to gain. So when people have nothing and they've lost their hope, and they have someone who is charismatic and saying, I see you when the rest of the world is ignoring you. I know that you deserve these things because it's your birthright. And they're saying, no one has ever said this to me before. So of course they're going to do whatever you say. But the idea of hiding your hands, that's why the string, like what you were talking about earlier, Tori, that's why it's important to connect the dots. Because if this group of people can do it, any group of people can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to make a correction. It wasn't
thought, yes.
seditious conspiracy, was disorderly conduct. I wanted to make that clear for heirs.
Thank you.